So we are continuing a sermon series today through the season of Lent called Birds of a Feather, in which we've been looking at the different species of birds and exploring what spiritual guidance they could give us from their characteristics and how that would apply to our Christian lives. And that's a tall order, but go with me. I think it's been going all right. So the first week, we looked at the woodpecker, and we explored that need to have rooted out, to have dug out, if you will, like the woodpecker does to the tree where the grubs are inside, to pull out that which is dwelling within that might be destroying that tree of life for us. And then last week, we looked at a very different bird. We looked at the vulture, if you'll remember. It is the ugliest bird, perhaps, or animal, maybe, in all of God's creation. And yet, it also shares with us some powerful lessons about toxicity, but then on the positive side, also about how it cleanses the earth, if you will, of all that would be there, and helps and reminds us of Christ cleansing our hearts and our lives from that which is sinful and dark within us. Today, we're going to a totally different bird, and that is the hummingbird. Did you see it up there? It's on your bulletins. I have to tell you that I adore the hummingbird. And in my research, I came across a documentary. If you've heard of Sir David Attenborough, the great British biologist and documentarian, he has presented a new documentary just about 2 months ago called The Hummingbird, Jeweled Messenger. And these are some of his words at the beginning of that. They are among the most spectacular creatures on earth. They have fascinated us for as long as we've known them. Their glittering colors and prowess in the air are unmatched. They are the celebrities, the stars of the bird world. We can see that they live their lives in the fast lane. In flight, they are just a blur. It's only when you slow down their supercharged lives that you begin to understand how they live. And so today, I want to slow down their lives a little bit and explore a little bit more about them. They live right on the cusp of what is possible in the animal kingdom, what is feasible for something that is living. They are, of course, the smallest bird of all the birds that exist. They are so very tiny. In fact, when I went to Costa Rica this summer, I bought this little wooden hummingbird, and I would suggest to you that's a little bit too big for what a hummingbird size really is. There's over 360 of them, and one of them is this big. But most of them are smaller than this, and actually, as light as this balsa wood is, lighter than this. In fact, they are the size of a penny in weight. The male is actually less than the size of a penny. The male averages like 1.5 grams, and the female, which is the larger, is about 2.6 grams. That is for the hummingbee, and that's about the physical size of what it would look like, the physical size of the smallest of them, the bee hummingbee. And I have that's one of them getting some nectar. There's the red-throated, and then here's the bee hummingbee, and it is so very, very tiny. You kind of wonder how in the world it can survive, and in fact, it doesn't just survive, it thrives. It's extraordinary. This little bird flies hundreds of miles and is really living in the fast lane, as Sir Attenborough said. It can, for its body size, go faster than any other bird, not per miles per hour, but for its body size, it goes faster. And its heart is the biggest heart in all the animals, including us. It's a bigger heart than anything out there. And it needs that because it's pumping so very quickly. Pump, 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 constantly beating. 1,200 beats per minute. That's a lot, by the way. And then it has the largest brain for any bird among birds. That said, that's still a bird brain. So it's not that big, right? It's itsy bitsy teeny there. It drinks its food. Instead of capturing it, it typically just drinks nectar. And so it has that long beak, and what it has also is a tongue that is bizarre. It's a micropump. It's like a straw. It sticks it into the flower, and it sucks out the nectar. And boy, can it drink. It can go. This thing will eat twice its weight every single day. Could you imagine? That's not something we should do, amen? I mean, that's like a refrigerator full of food for me every single day. So that's not a good idea. But they have a faster metabolism than I have or than you have, and they can just go and they go and they go. For me, the most fascinating thing isn't their heart, their brain, or their eyelids, which they have 3. They have a faster set, so they can go fast. But it's how they fly. How do they fly? Do you know this, right? They can hover in midair. No other bird can do this. They can stand still. Now, every bird can go forward and can go up. Well, most every bird. Every flying bird can go forward and up. But the hummingbird can fly down, backwards, sideways, hover in midair. It can fly upside down in every direction. And it does it because it has this extraordinary figure 8 type of wing flap. It just goes like this instead of like this. And that figure 8 style enables it to hover and do all those other things. When it's beating its wings, how many beats per second do you think? The answer is a lot. The average is at over 50, normally more like 90. But that red-throated hummingbird, especially when it's in mating season, 200 per second. 200 beats per second. Do you know anybody like this who's just like, yeah, full tilt, like nonstop, intense, like always is moving, always going, always is blah, blah, blah. I love this, and I respect it, right? I can a little bit identify a hummingbird. I'm not small, but I a little bit identify with a hummingbird, right? And I like the fact that I like anything that's productive, that gets things done, that's a non-stopper, that doesn't contribute to the workload of others, but alleviates from the workload of others, that doesn't require others to have to care for it, but carries its own weight. The hummingbird punches way above its weight, depending upon its size. But there's some downsides for living in the fast lane in that way. The downsides are, one is it can't really use its legs. It's so used to flying that it can land and stand on its legs, but it can't walk. Most every other bird can walk. It has to flutter and then land again, and then flutter and then land again. It has so atrophied its legs over the years because of its capacity to fly and go so fast that it's underused them and then can't really use them that well. They also have very short lives. Many birds can live decades or over 100 years, some birds, but not the hummingbird. The average is less than 5 years. Many of them, including the bee hummingbird, more like 3 years, and they're done. That's a short lifespan. There is a cost for living nonstop. Amen? And that's really what we want to look at today. That capacity within us to just go, go, go. And while it's wonderful to do and contribute and get things done and work hard, we've got to be careful to not be hasty in our efforts in this life. To be mindful of the opportunities, the need, in fact, to slow down, to stop, to take a moment. And for some of us, that's a lot easier than others. For the hummingbirds in here, I know you struggle with that. And there's other people who just don't get it. They're like, hey, be chill. It's cool. And you're like, come on. God has made us in a variety of different ways. And for the person who's chill, you're not the hummingbird. God loves you too, but you may not know what it's like to live in this way. But for those of us who are more in that direction, there's a place for us to stop every now and then and not just consume, but smell the roses. Amen? In fact, I want to invite you to do that with me for a second. Would you breathe deep into the nose and out through the mouth? To be still and present in the moment. To not constantly be thinking about what's next, what's on the agenda, what items haven't I taken care of, what I need to ask somebody to do, what we're going to do this afternoon. Am I prepared for this next thing? While it's good to be prepared, and while it's great to contribute, there is a godliness and an importance throughout our scriptures of being present in a moment. For stopping and being still, taking it in, and entering into a holy presence with the Almighty God. There's a beautiful story in the New Testament that includes a person who's a bit hasty. And it's found in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10. Jesus has made his way leaving the holy city of Jerusalem. And so many times when Jesus comes to or leaves from Jerusalem, he stops off in a town that's right beside it. It's only 1.5 miles away from Jerusalem, and the name of that town is Bethany. Do you know it? Bethany is a peculiar town. It's not where you want to live. You don't buy a home there if you hope the housing market is rising and then you're going to recoup your investments. You don't go there to be around all the greatest people. All my friends will be there. You're moved there, especially if you're struggling and if you're sick. Bethany's name means house of misery. Not a place you think you'd want to live, right? But some people choose to live there, and others are basically forced to live there. It's where people would quarantine if they had leprosy or other grave illnesses. It's where, if they had to be separate from their loved ones for fear of giving them an illness, that they would go to. And so many people in Bethany are gravely ill and in need of care. And then there's a few people, saintly, godly, wonderful, Mother Teresa-like people, who have chosen to live in Bethany to care for them. The nurses, the doctors, the healthcare providers, the aides to people in their homes who have chosen to go and live there and help to enable them to have food and shelter and sustenance and to thrive in what little ways they can for what life they have left. These are saints who live in Bethany. And the scriptures tell us that Jesus goes and visits in a particular household very regularly on his way to and from Jerusalem, which I love that about Jesus, right? That Jesus chooses to go there. And in Bethany, there's a family that lives. They're siblings, and their names are Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Now, Lazarus is one of Jesus' best friends. We find out later that Lazarus gets ill. Maybe he succumbs to one of the illnesses that's so common there in Bethany, and he dies, and Jesus comes and he raises him out of the grave. 3 days later, he comes out of the tomb, a foreshadowing of Jesus' resurrection, the great resurrection that Jesus initiates for all of us. But there's also Martha and Mary. And Martha's the one who owns the home, because we're told in Gospel of Luke chapter 10 that Jesus says he goes into the city, that he finds his way into the house. And he's welcomed by Martha into her home. She had a sister named Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. Say many tasks. Many tasks. How many of us have many tasks? She was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to him and she asked Jesus, Lord, if you do not care that my sister has left, do you not care that my sister has left me with all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me. This is how Martha responds to the situation. Now, again, I'm going to say it. I love Martha. Martha's a great gal. She's wonderful. She's an awesome person. But as a word of caution, whenever anybody in the scriptures tells Jesus what to do, things don't turn out too well for them. It's a bad habit to tell God, the Almighty Lord, what God needs to do for you. You can ask Jesus to do things. You can beg Jesus to do things. You can implore Jesus to do things. You can say, Lord, I'm willing to do all kinds of things for you, but be careful telling Jesus what he must do. Martha does that. She says, tell her to help me. She has gotten so frustrated with all of the things she's trying to carry and all the things she's trying to do. She's beating her wings so quickly that she's losing her mind, and she goes, can't you all see all that I'm doing? How can you just sit there and let this persist? And instead of saying, Mary, get in here and help me, maybe she already has, I don't know, she shames Mary by saying, Jesus, tell her, get in here and help me out right now. How does that turn out? Not so well. Jesus responds, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken from her. There's so much going on in here that you may know or see, or maybe you don't. On one level, what Martha is doing is the appropriate, kosher, it's the hospitable, the lovely, the beautiful thing to open her home, to prepare for a meal, to welcome them, maybe to wash the feet of the disciples, to let them come in as honored guests and prepare for them. But have you ever been the host or a hostess of a party and you've just been running around the whole time and you never got the chance to actually sit down or enjoy all your work of your efforts, right? All the labor. Maybe you're like, I never talked to John the whole time he was in there. I never even had a chance to, because you're running and you're running and you're running. Mary may well have done that many times, but not today. Today, when Jesus comes into their home and her sister Martha is running ragged, Mary does something not okay. See, the place of sitting at the rabbi's feet and listening to what he said is the place of a disciple. And only men were allowed to be disciples. Mary diverts from the social norm and she goes, I just can't help it. I'm going to settle in. I'm going to breathe deep of the presence of Jesus Christ in my midst. I can't help but to make sure that I can celebrate this moment, and I'm going to make it last. And what Jesus does is extraordinary. First of all, he recognizes her as a disciple. He's like, right you are. Anybody who would take the time to be in the presence of the Lord is going to meet you there. And Jesus met her, Mary, where she was. Mary sat at his feet, and he was delighted she was there. Now, Martha was not. Martha is going, I could use some help. There's always so much to do. Martha, you're forgetting the most important thing. The Message translation says it this way. Jesus says, Martha, dear Martha, you're fussing far too much and getting yourself worked up over nothing. One thing is essential, and Mary has chosen it. It's the main course, and it won't be taken from her. What's the main course? The main course is being in the presence of the Lord. Is there a place for doing and running and getting things and attending to everything? There's a time and there's a place for that. You know what else there is? There's a time and a place for being still. There's a time and a place for feasting on the Word of God. Sitting with the Scriptures. Going to the Lord in prayer. And letting the Lord feed you. Jesus says to Martha, Mary has chosen the main course and you're trying to take it from her. You're not taking it from her. She could stay right where she is. Remember how much the hummingbird could eat? Twice its body weight. But it's not just eat everything in sight. Don't just do everything that could possibly get done. Be discerning. The Scriptures talks about hasty. Being hasty as being a negative. In the Old Testament, in the Scriptures we had this morning, there's this warning, like being hasty is just doing whatever you see next. It's not being discerning. Hasty doesn't create life, it robs us of life. It means that we enter into folly. We might choose things that are ridiculous or get upset about things that are minor. We're invited, instead of being hasty, to be discerning, to be mindful of the needs that there are, but to have a balance in this life between the doing and the being. The psalm tells us that God, who has every reason to say, I'm done with you and I'm moving on, is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. That's who our Lord is. And that's what we're invited to do. When we're quick to be angry, when we're quick to lose our time and our place, when we're quick to move on, to maybe settle in for a moment. Put away the phone, close the laptop, and be present. And for the hummingbirds, that's a really hard thing to do. One of my favorite saints of the last century is a woman named Corrie ten Boom, who survived the Holocaust. And she said this. She said, if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. Isn't that the case? The devil's like, I'm trying to get you to do this. No? Okay, well then I want you so distracted and packing so many things into your life that you don't have time for God. I'm going to keep you from that still center, that important place of being present with the Almighty. You know, our Methodist movement is all about doing. I don't know if you know this. John Wesley famously said, do all the good you can and all the places you can to all the people you can as long as ever you can. Our general rules in the United Methodist Church are do no harm, do good, and attend to the ordinances of God. It's a lot of doing. And sometimes we can be so packing our lives that then we don't take time to have a spiritual center. And what John Wesley beautifully said when he was confronted with that reality, what do you do when you have a lot? John Wesley, when you're preaching 3 sermons today at 3 different places and you're teaching all this stuff and you're running from place to place, what do you do? And John Wesley said, I have so much to do that I spend several hours in prayer before I am able to do it. Does it sound unachievable? To the hummingbirds, that seems impossible. And yet, God's grace is there with us in the journey. I suggest to us the busier we are, the more hectic our lives, the more we have on our plate, the more we need to begin the day in prayer and in the Word of God. If you don't have a lot going on in your life, pray anytime you want. But if your schedule is packed, if you're carrying the weight of the things in your life and you're caring for others, if you're a Martha or a hummingbird, put together a schedule. Make it intentional. Make sure you've prioritized being present with the Almighty God. Beautiful things take place when we pause from our fast-paced lives and are present for a few moments. Last week, I was visiting with our Upwards basketball games in the Rock down the hallway here in our gym. And there was all kinds of games throughout the day going on, and they were really fun. They were great. At one point, I was watching one of the girls' games, and one of the leaders of Upwards came over to me and said, "Hey, you got to see this. This is about to happen." And I said, "What is it?" He goes, "Just come over and watch." And the whole season, we're at the end of the season, the whole season, there was this one girl on the team with special needs who had never made a shot. She had been playing the games, and everybody was great with her, but she couldn't make a shot in the midst of the game. And it's extraordinary because, not that she couldn't make a shot, but what's extraordinary is just how fast-paced they are. I mean, they're like, shoo, shoo, shoo. It's like tennis, watching them run up and down the court. They go so fast. It seems like a nonstop thing. But on this day, they gave her the ball at the end of the court, and everybody knew, and they ran with her as she dribbled down the court without taking the ball. And they got to in front of the basket, and they let her take a shot. And she missed. 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 And then she made it. Do you know what rejoicing there was when she made it? Savoring it all the more because of the patience, because they were willing to be present with her and extend to her that care. The place went wild. You know, it's like NCAA championship game. Wow! Everybody's jumping up and down, giving her high fives. She's delighted, and she just continues the game. It was a special moment. There is a great blessing that can come from contributing and doing. But don't neglect the blessing that can come from slowing down and being present and being still with the Lord for a moment or two. Thanks be to God. Amen.